Boy, those fans were abusive. This was supposed to be the ramp up to the excitement for the 2026 World Cup, this Copa tournament, because all these games were played here in the States, home field advantage, if you will, for Team USA. And they came out of the gates and they stomped Bolivia in the first game. And you looked at the roster, and we had talked extensively about Christian Pulisic and how he's grown as a player and a man, as a leader. And we saw the young guys, and they all played well against Bolivia. And then they got mugged in the back alley by Panama. And then they got beat by Uruguay. And the referees in both games 2 and games 3 have come under enormous criticism. And in the second half of the loss to Uruguay that eliminated them the other night, all you could hear was not the fans cheering. All you could hear was fire Gregg, talking about Gregg Berhalter, the head coach of Team USA, who was brought in to rebuild this roster. I'm going to take a different stance, and this might not be very popular. But the last I checked, it's my podcast, although you are entitled to an opinion in the fans forum. You need time to build and grow young players. And he jammed a lot of young players on the pitch to go with Christian Pulisic. One of them, Balogun, got hurt in the game against Uruguay. So that's a big issue there. Secondly, he went with a lot of younger players on the back line. John Brooks is not there. A couple of the other veteran defenders were not there. And then Matt Turner got hurt, got dinged up with a leg injury in the Uruguay game. And then to compound it, and this is not going to be a bailout excuse, but I really thought that they got screwed by the officiating in Game 2 and in Game 3. There were 28 fouls. Pulisic got mugged, and yet hardly any yellow cards, no red cards against the opponents. I mean, you talk about the shin kicking, and you talk about the elbows and the forearms. Pulisic just took a battering, and they did nothing. And they had to restrain Pulisic at the end of the game against Uruguay because he stormed to the referee. Uruguay was allowed to score a goal on what looked like a really blatant offside, and they went to VAR, video assistance for the referee. It showed the Uruguayan player was offside, and the judge from Peru, the referee from Peru, allowed it to be a goal. Pulisic confronted the referee at the end of the game, screaming at him. And then Pulisic, who I think is going to get fined by FIFA, Pulisic turned, pointed to the Uruguayan huddle where they all were celebrating. He told the referee from Peru to go celebrate with Team Uruguay because you gave them the victory. So now there's going to be a review as to whether Berhalter is the right coach. I think you got to stay the course. I just don't think you can be firing coaches after every international tournament. Granted, they haven't done well against the top-rated teams for FIFA, but this was a rebuild. So you got Pulisic as the cornerstone. You got Tim Weah, who got thrown out of Game 2 because of a red card as a cornerstone. You've got Reyna. You've got Balogun. You've got other young guys. They got to grow. And by firing the coach and bringing somebody else in different with a new system, I just don't think is the proper move. But at the end of the day, we thought this would be the launching point for 2026, and instead it became a roadblock, although I tend to think the referees had a lot to do with what happened in the Game 2 loss and what happened in the ugly decision to allow Uruguay to score a tainted goal. John, your turn.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's always a bad look to bang on the refs, but yeah, that was a legit offsides, that should have been caught with the VAR, but it wasn't. Even Team USA looked, even in the win against Bolivia, they still seemed underwhelming. I think they won 2-0, but it should have been like 4-0 or even more than that. But those last two games against Panama and Uruguay were so physical. And I just it was like watching an NFL game or a rugby. It was unbelievable. But in my opinion, you stay the course with Berhalter. You put the blame on the players. They've got to be able to execute out there. You can't blame the refs. That's a bad look. And what do we got? We got one more international tournament in 2025, and then in 26, it's the World Cup.
Well, they got time to grow. I just don't think they should blow this thing up at this point in time. Hey, Hacksaw's Holiday Cookout podcast from the Adirondacks in upstate New York.